welcome to another Journey to the Blue Sky. My name is Aaron.
My name is Patricia.
And today we are looking at what is the second to last Blue Sky Studios movie.
Yeah, so we are in the penultimate movie right before we go over to the post Blue Skies projects. And well, I mean, we're still on a trend here of just mediocrity, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so, I guess you could say maybe this is probably like the last official Blue Sky Studios movie, I guess you can say, before obviously the
Mm,
Disney buyout, I think is.
no, that would be the next movie that we're going to be talking about, and then the Disney buyout. But you can
Yeah.
see that the writing was on the wall that things were not looking pretty brightly.
hmm So, Ferdinand, for everybody who doesn't know, is a 2017 computer animated film produced by Blue Sky Studios and distributed by 20th Century Fox. The film, a loose remake of the Ferdinand the Bull, loosely based on Munro Leaf and Robert Lawson's 1936 children's books, The Story of Ferdinand, and was written by Robert L. Bard. So the plot is that in Spain, a young bull named Ferdinand lives with other bulls in the Señor Marico Casa del Toro, where they are trained for bullfighting. Ferdinand is a pacifist who loves flowers, and this makes him an outcast among the other calves. Valente, Grepo, and Bones, a matador arrives, and the calves father fights to impress him. Ferdinand's father is picked, so Valente crushes Ferdinand's favorite flower in retaliation. Ferdinand's father does not come back from the ring, and Ferdinand runs away from Casa del Toro to a flower farm owned by Juan and his daughter Nina, who they decide to adopt him. Many years later, Ferdinand has grown into an enormous bull, but still a gentle bull. One determines that Ferdinand looks too scary to be to the annual flower festival, as in previous years when he was a calf. Ferdinand follows them anyway, but is stung by a bee and panics, accidentally destroying the town square. Animal control officers seem dangerous and take him back to Casa del Toro, where they meet up with a bullfighter who's going to go off with his last fight. El Perico arrives, needing a bull for his final fight before the retirement. Monreo puts all the bulls in the ring to fight it out, but Ferdinand refuses to take part, causing a chain of mishaps when he tries to help Grepo recover from the stage fright-induced faint. El Primo gives Monreo 2 days for his bull to get into a shape. Grepo is sent to the slaughterhouse, and Valente informs of the horrified Ferdinand that non-fighters now become meat. So, basically, that's our setup for the movie. And just to start off with the story, I've got to be honest with everybody, just as an overall to start off with, I would say this movie has problems, unfortunately, in the first and second act, but somehow it manages to wrap up in the third act pretty well. I don't know
the
how you felt
reason
about it.
the reason why was because the third act is probably the closest that they actually captured to the original source material of the book, whereas when we were talking about Epic and we were comparing it to its source material, and yeah, when you look at Ferdinand, it's basically the plot about a young bull who loves flowers. His mother tells him to play with the other bulls, and he doesn't want to because he just loves sniffing at flowers. One day when he's all grown up, a bunch of cowboys come by and look at all the bulls to take them over to the matador, and a bee stings Ferdinand. He runs out, and they think that, oh, he's a big bull, and so they decide to take him. They take him over to where the bullfighting stadium is, and the matador is fighting him, but he refuses to fight. And then they just said, you know what, okay, he's not going to fight, so let's take him home happily ever after. So yeah, the reason why the third act was probably the best was because it was the one that was closest to the book, while everything else in the first and second act had nothing to do with it. So once again, let's just take this simple story, add in a whole bunch of stuff, and then just make it generic and mediocre, just like with Epic.
Yeah, I just there's just a lot of story elements in here which just really just really nonsensical. Like there's one scene where basically we get like a dance off between like the horses and the bulls, and like it just kind of comes out of nowhere really. Like it's not really built up to anything. It doesn't really go anywhere, quite frankly. And again, like I've not read the book, so I can only go off what the movie basically is. And but there's a lot of like, stuff in here that just isn't funny, just isn't like engaging, and it just feels like the story just gets really distracted from itself, I think. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just looking at this, like it's so painful. Or some of the stuff also as well. Like there's not one joke in this movie that lands. Anyone
No,
agree on that?
none of it. And you would think that, okay, we have this big bull and he is going into these tight spaces and he has to be really careful before he knocks anything out. And you would think that would get a laugh. Oh, this big bull who's trying to be careful, and then a whole bunch of wacky, unfortunate things happen where he causes it to crash. I mean, that's classic slapstick humor that you would see in a Looney Tunes cartoon or you would see in a silent film. But no, this one just comes across as very flat.
Like I just it's just amazing how like you could just basically put a lot of stuff on the screen, but then do like it really achieves not much. I mean, my only favorite parts of basically the movie are basically like when Ferdinand finally gets to the flower farm and meets up with Juan and meets up with Nina, like, and then when they finally meet up again, like at the very end of the movie, like those were effectively like my only favorite parts of the film, effectively
Yeah,
when they
but
like all on screen together.
yeah, it basically feels like Charlotte's Web, in which you have this young girl named Fern, and she sees a pig who's about to be slaughtered. She takes him in, and they start growing up together, where she raises him, and it's very sweet. And then you feel even sadder when she has to give him up. And you would think that a scene like when Ferdinand is being taken away after he crashes the entire flower festival, and you would think, oh man, this is supposed to be the scene where you're supposed to be sad, but no, it just makes you question about, like, why didn't the dad go over to the police and said, no, that's my bull and I'll be the one to take care of all the damages that happened. But no, they just see him, take him away, and that's it. And we don't even see them until the end of the movie, which makes you just wonder if they even cared about Ferdinand in the first place. Otherwise, they'll be a lot more urgent to find him.
Yeah, like there should have been like some tension going on between the flower farm and like the bullfighting ring, in my opinion. Like it just is. There should have been some interactions between the two. Like oh hey, you took my bull, and it's like well this is what you're doing with the bull, so therefore I think we should we should keep it. Like I have a massive fight out with that, and then the authorities say, well it wasn't your bull to begin with, and therefore you got to give Ferdinand back to the bullfighters. So I mean there should have been some tension in there, but if they were gonna like take creative liberties with Ferdinand the Bull, and that's what they should have done with it, in my opinion. But they didn't.
And when you finally see Ferdinand returning to Casa El Toro, the owners, I mean, are they even the same owners from the beginning of the movie? Because they look different.
Yeah, well, maybe time has passed and maybe like different people have taken over. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
so the whole thing about like, oh, this is my bull, and we've been looking for this bull for a long time or something like that. I guess they didn't really think of this through, where it would have been a really interesting idea about like if the original owners of Casa del Toro would have like put up wanted posters saying, "Hey, we're missing this bull," or "Wild bull is wandering around in the streets of Madrid. Be on the lookout for him." And maybe they would have said, "I'm sorry, this is not your bull. We have to take him away." Maybe that would have kind of like tied up the loose ends of maybe the farmers or the people trying to find where their bull was this entire time, but that never gets resolved. There's just a lot of loose ends that don't get resolved, and there's a lot of plot points and characters that are added into it that doesn't really add anything.
In regards to like all the other characters, I mean, yeah, they are. I mean, the animation I want to really want to talk about is the minute is that Ferdinand himself as a character actually looks pretty good on screen. Like you can see the shininess of like his fur and everything, and you can see how the well he's put together and everything like that. How much he stands out amongst everything. So like he is a giant, massive bull. So they've really nailed all of that. But I mean, all the other characters, I've got to be honest with you, they look pretty stock when you really
They
think
do.
about it. And on top of that, I think with the humans, I think we've also taken a massive step backwards as well because like the humans remind me of the humans from like the first Ice Age movie.
They do actually, with their bulbous noses and their complexions. Yeah, they do remind me of the characters from Ice Age. Whereas if you look at, say, the humans from Rio, where they were distinctly different and they had different body shapes and they were able to have distinct features that differentiated from Ice Age, or even in the Peanuts movie, in which you focus on the kids and they were able to take the art style from Charles Schultz's comic strips. They look different. So, yeah, I don't know what they were thinking in terms of like homaging the same human designs from Ice Age and putting it into Ferdinand, especially since this came out 15 years after Ice Age.
Yeah, but I mean, like the thing I would say about Rio is like, so, at least the characters look like they don't look like they would have like appeared in like the Ice Age movies. They look very different in Rio. But yeah, here in Ferdinand, I mean, like it just feels like they've just taken a step backwards and said, "Oh yeah, let's just make him out of Ice Age." Like
Yeah, and if
it's
you're
really strange to look at.
yeah, and if you're wondering about if this whole if Ice Age and Ferdinand take place in the same universe, well, Blue Sky have never actually confirmed if all of the movies take place in the same universe, unlike in Pixar, in which they put in a lot of homages and Easter eggs into their films that you could argue that they do. And to a slight lesser extent, DreamWorks, but not really so because the 2D and the 3D movies wouldn't be in the same universe. But yeah, I don't know about Blue Sky. If anybody can let us know in the comments if they do belong in the same universe, let us know.
So, let's go with the characters now, and I think we're getting up to like what everyone says, is the big thing that sticks out like a sore thumb in this, and that is that this is the animated voice actor debut of John Cena.
Yes, and I
So,
was disappointed when in 15 minutes into the movie, I could no longer see Ferdinand.
yeah, exactly, and it's really sad, really, because like I mean, to be fair, it is his first attempt trying to like do animated movie. So I guess there's that. So, I mean, like, cause I mean, before I think he did Ferdinand, like I mean, he was basically just doing like cameos, like he had a cameo like Fred the movie and stuff like that, and like he was basically doing. I mean, actually, no, I lie. I mean, he was in the Flintstones and WWE Stone Age SmackDown, but I mean, he really all he was doing was playing himself. And also, he was also in Surf's Up 2 as well, Wave Mania. But again, that was just him playing himself, you know. So like,
Unfortunately, he's no Dwayne Johnson.
yeah, like, well, it's just, I mean, though, I gotta be honest with you, this is the first, I'm gonna be honest with everybody, this is the first ever John Cena movie that I've seen. Like, I've never seen John Cena, willingly, like, in the movie that's specifically with him being billed for it. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't know, like this is like the first attempt of him to like, do the whole like Dwayne Johnson role. Besides that, I've not seen like any of the other. I mean, the next movie I'm probably going to see with him probably in it is when he plays Rocksteady in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. But besides that, like, I've not really seen like any of the other movies. I've not even watched Peacemaker for crying out loud.
Yeah,
So,
I haven't seen The Marine. I haven't seen Trainwreck. I haven't seen a Suicide Squad either. So I don't know how John Cena is as an actor, but as a voice actor, especially since I'm seeing Ferdinand, and as of the making of this, I have not seen TMNT Mutant Mayhem either. So yeah, I have to say that he doesn't play it any differently than if you were to get like a legit voice actor into this film. So once again, they're playing into the whole let's add a whole bunch of celebrities into our movie because it'll get us more butts in the seats.
well, to be fair, I can see why they picked John Cena for this movie because, like, in real life, he is a big, massive dude. Like, so, like, I mean, to play a massive character like Ferdinand, I can see why they went for John Cena. But
Sure, I can see.
unfortunately,
On paper, it makes sense. Execution, not really. I mean, I know that John Cena's reputation, and here's the thing: I'm not a wrestler fan, but I know about John Cena's reputation as like he's the Superman. He's the one who goes into the championships and wins every single time. He goes over to kids and he approaches them and they love him and they want to be just like him. He's supposed to be like a role model, kind of like how Hulk Hogan was in the wrestling federation in the 80s. So I can see where
to be
that
fair,
is.
though, I mean, like, so Hulk Hogan at one point was saying that he was trying to get away from wrestling at that point because, like, he wanted to transition to be like, a movie actor and a television star. Obviously, it never worked out, and obviously, he ended up back in wrestling. And but because everyone
Yeah.
looked at him like, yeah, that's Hulk Hogan,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I mean, to
and
be fair, like Suburban Commando and Mr. Nanny, I mean,
yeah, that was those things. Also, he tried to do Thunder in Paradise as well. Do you remember that drama as
oh
well?
God.
Yeah, there was that. So, I mean, like, he was attempting to, like, get out of the sport. And to be fair, I mean, John Cena is now at the point where, he can't wrestle the entire time of his career. Like, he has to do something else. And so that's where he is. And he's, at this point, I think he was in transition to 2017 where he was trying to get a bit further away from wrestling and trying to get into movie acting because he needs something to do after his body breaks down and he can't do wrestling no more.
Sure,
So
sure. I understand that. And, as a wrestler, especially as somebody who is physical with a lot of techniques when it comes to like, doing all the stuff in the ring with, getting your head smashed into the ring or chairs or barbed wire. I can understand that your body takes a massive toll and you want to be able to do something else. Yeah, I mean, I can understand that part. But like I said, on paper, it sounds like a good idea. John Cena is in a kids movie where he plays as this bull who has a heart of gold. But like I said, like his performance is just so generic and bland that you could have casted anybody into the movie and they would have done just as well, if not even better.
that's a good question. Like, who would you cast besides as Ferdinand besides John Cena?
Anybody else? I mean, if you would, yeah, like put a voice actor in there, like put Troy Baker or Nolan North or Rob Paulson or Jim Cummings into the movie. They would be able to have that kind of charisma into the character of Ferdinand, and they would be able to play it off well because of their versatility in voice acting. They could have played the soft persona, they could have played the scared persona, they could have played the angry persona, they could have done a whole bunch of those things like without even trying. So yeah, like I said before, I don't understand why so many movie studios do the Jeffrey Katzenberg approach of just casting celebrities because they think that because the kids don't know it, but the parents will, they'll be able to get more money in the seats. I mean, I'm hoping that this whole thing will stop in the future because it's just getting ridiculous.
No, I think we're going to constantly keep having celebrities in animated movies. That's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, unfortunately, Blue Sky Studios, with the exception of maybe like Ice Age and Horton Hears a Who, they have barely proven a point onto why they keep casting celebrities into their movies. I mean, the Peanuts movie, for example, was able to do that with little to no celebrities. They were able to cast real kids who weren't actors, and they were able to have them perform as the iconic characters that we knew and love. The only exception was Kristen Chenoweth as Fifi, but she just did like one or two barking roles, lines, and that was it. And people loved the movie because it had the Peanuts characters and it was a good story and the characters were lovable. Once again, we're taking another step backwards with just casting celebrities into the movie because that's just the way it is, apparently.
Yeah. One thing I find in besides John Cena aside, when you look at the casting, this is a motley crew of acting. The casting was really interesting how they brought people in. So Kate McKinnon from SNL fame is the
oh my gosh, I love Kate McKinnon. She is one of my favorite SNL cast members. Anything that she appears in is hilarious, which makes it really, really sad when the character that she does play in is annoying as hell.
Yeah, it's just sad watching her trying to be funny, and it's just not. And another thing that was also striking is that Peyton Manning plays Guepo in this, as a loudmouth bull with stage fright. But he's a former NFL player, if I recall.
Yes, he is. He is a former NFL player. A lot of people probably know him for either being in the Indianapolis Colts or the Denver Broncos. Yeah, he is a massive NFL player. And to hear him playing as this scared, nauseous bull who is fearing of trying to make himself big so that he doesn't get overshadowed by all the other ones. Wow. I mean, again, like I get the whole thing on paper. It's like, okay, you have this NFL player who's going to play a bull.
Well, whatever. And then Anthony Anderson's in this movie, which everyone knows him from which he's more to doing detectives, kind of genre kind of stuff really, rather than Ferdinand. So
I mean, to be fair,
really strange.
it is true that a lot of people may know him for, being in like NYPD Blue and various other things where
He was
he's
in Law and Order as well, wasn't he?
yeah, he is in Law and Order, yes. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, he has done his fair share of comedy. Like he's in Blackish, for example, where he plays as like the funny dad. But yeah, like I mean, Anthony Anderson is definitely more for comedy, but like I said, it's the execution of it where you would want to see him. It's very similar to Kate McKinnon, where ordinarily he's a hilarious guy, but seeing him in a role that has very weak writing makes him look even worse.
Definitely does. And also, just to wrap up, like how random this is, and I guarantee they must have like just like drew straws or like I don't know, like just put this in like a random machine or whatever. But David Tennant is all in this playing a Scottish person. Sorry, it's a Scottish
Yeah.
bull. And
Wow.
also, how does the Scottish Highland bull get into Spain?
I guess very similar to how the forces got into Spain, in which, because Europe is like intertwined with each other, they're able to have these purchases of all these animals and then have a train deliver them over so that they can be able to be there for reasons. Sure. But I guess because David Tennant was doing Doctor Who at the time, I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to cast him into this movie playing as this bull who can't see, going all Mr. Magoo on us.
Yeah, just this. Also, they did like the whole Mister, well, I guess like Mrs. Magoo, so kind of like joke in the China shop scene. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. The scene that a lot of people always point out as like a scene that should have been funny, but was just executed very poorly, where he's in this China shop so he can hide away from the people who are chasing after him. And he sees all of these plates and cups that he's trying to sneakily try to get away from so he doesn't crash into them. And then you have Mrs. Magoo over here dusting everything, and she takes his tail and thinks it's a dust brush. So yeah, we have two Mrs. Magoos in this movie.
Yeah. And again, like it just feels like a lot of the stuff that's been done in this movie has already been done like millions of times already in other animated films. So like there's no scene I would say in Ferdinand that makes this stand out. I don't think. Besides, like where the horse is trying to be funny while there's like a slaughterhouse like in the background, and that's more depressing than anything else.
Yeah, it is very, very depressing. I mean, they tried to be like Chicken Run, in which like, oh, we're gonna have a lot of serious repercussions for these bulls. In the movie Chicken Run, we have the chickens who are trying to lay eggs, and if they don't lay eggs, they're going to be killed off. And now that it's been years since Ferdinand ran away from Casa El Toro, went into the farm and was able to live a peaceful life, and then was dragged back into del Toro. He is told by Valiente that if they don't stand up, if they don't go over to be picked by the matadors, then they're going to be taken over to the slaughterhouse. So you would think that there's going to be like major stakes involved. It's like, oh wow, now he really needs to be good. But no, they don't do a very good job with trying to bring in the repercussions of bulls trying to be good so that they don't get killed off. In fact, it's a major cop out what happens later on, in which you would think that they'll have a serious moment where, similar to like Chicken Run and Charlotte's Web, in which like they're in a farm and animals die and they get killed off. There are some animals that are more useful than others. But no, of course they don't. We don't want to scare the kids, apparently.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they try not to scare the kids, they've done a pretty poor job in this because, it's this movie's just so depressing when you look at it. Like, it's a bull that just can't find his place in the world, and if you don't find his way in the world, that he dies. Like, the whole thing is just so feels so. I wouldn't show this movie to a depressed person.
Yeah, they completely like ruined the moral of the story, which is don't judge a book by its cover, where you would think a bull would be dangerous and would be violent, but no, a bull who is different from everybody else can be very sweet and loves flowers and loves to be in nature. Like, that's the whole point of the story, was that just because you're one thing doesn't mean you're automatically going to be that thing. It's something that we already learned with Zootopia, that just because you're a predator, it does not mean that you're dangerous. So yeah, they already told a better story like this a year prior in Disney films. I mean, yeah, I don't understand why they didn't take the original story concept of Ferdinand and put it into here. I guess they tried to, but all the additional stuff they added into it just kind of weighs it down.
Yeah. Do you know what I would like to see more character building of? That's El Primero, the bullfighter. In all of this,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like he's supposed to be like our quote unquote main villain of the story, where he's basically doing his last bullfighting. I would love to see more of his backstory about like the pressures of trying to be the very best, of putting together his last bullfight right before he retires, picking a bull, even though that I think he did a terrible job of planning it, because usually if it's going to be your last thing of anything, wouldn't it be planned like, I don't know, months, a year in advance, so that you know that you're ready to go and you can focus on everything else like promotion, getting the tickets purchased, marketing? But I don't know. I guess not. Let's just, have 2 days right before your main final fight. And then you're going to just go over to like this one ranch where they have bulls in it. And you're going to decide on whether you want to keep it or not. Sure.
yeah. Like, I mean, like, you can tell he has a massive ego, and like, he looks down on like on everybody around him. But like it doesn't. The one thing that kind of confuses me at the very end of the movie is that I mean, also when we get to the point where Ferdinand has to face the bullfighter, and he's about to like kill the bull. He's about to kill Ferdinand, and but then he sits down and says, "No, I'm not going to fight you," and then all of a sudden, like, the crowd, obviously start saying, "Oh no, spare the bull and don't, kill it." But and then, he looks around and then he basically just says, "Okay, well, I respect you. I'm not going to fight you and anymore," and then just walks away. And like, I thought that was refreshing. I thought, but it's just about like the rest of the movie had to be pretty terrible, if that's kind of like stick out, I guess.
Yeah,
But
it's kind of like the reverse issue that we had with Turbo. You remember how in Turbo, in which, the rest of the movie was pretty fine. And then we got to the ending of the movie where you had this race car driver and he was the bad guy at literally the last minute. And we're like, but he didn't really need to be a bad guy. They
yeah.
could have done the same thing here with Ferdinand, in which, like, this Matador was basically getting himself ready for retirement. He was going to put on this big show for everyone because he's the best. And then when he sees that the bull doesn't want to fight, and then everybody's cheering for him, saying, "Let him live, let him live." And then he's like, "Okay, yeah. I mean, sure, I was planning for a long time of my retirement. Sure, I'm going to leave off my very last bullfight with not killing the bull. Okay, I'm going to just walk away." And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, which is kind of like, it's just, I mean, I guess he is in a position where he can walk away, I guess. And I guess someone better not tell him that, his Ferrari basically got destroyed, in the midst of this movie.
Yeah, I
And
guess
by the
that's
way,
true.
yeah, there's that. But yeah, yeah, this movie has like, some very confusing, like, evolution of characters, in this. In yeah, it's
Yeah,
and
there's just
all
in
basically
my
they end up changing us all in some cases.
Yeah, like there's too many characters in this movie. You have not only Ferdinand, not only the other bulls, you have three hedgehogs, you have the horses, you have the matador, you have the farm hands, you have the ranch hands. You have all of these characters just going up all at once, and there's like no development in any of them. They're just so generic, one dimensional, and kind of forgettable.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just like there's too many characters and none of them get enough development. None of them.
That seems to be a major trend that we've been following throughout this retrospective. The same thing happened with the Ice Age films. The same thing happened with Rio. Like, seriously, Blue Sky, I think you need to get it together. Too many characters does not make a good movie if you're not going to develop them.
Well, I mean, they can't get it together. They're not around anymore. So
Well, yeah, I guess they learned that lesson too late then.
yeah. So and in regards to the music, I mean, it's pretty stock, pretty
It
much like
is.
yeah, like it's there's nothing here which obviously the thing that kind of sticks out, surprisingly in this movie is the Macarena. Like,
Oh
but I
God.
guess Spain, so I guess Macarena, I guess.
Mm,
But yeah, besides that, like there's just there's nothing else real. I mean, the music, for me, doesn't seem to be very striking at all. Like, it just seems to be. There's times where I kind of like the music kind of like maybe say, "Oh, hey, we're going into Coco," or "Hey, we're going into this movie," or "Hey, we're going into that movie," but nothing kind of like you made it feel like Ferdinand in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, speaking of Coco, this is the second time that a Blue Sky Studios film was nominated for an Oscar for Best Animated Film, and it lost to Coco. So, yeah, this movie was crushed by Coco because it came out of the same year.
Yeah, so unfortunately, there's not much else really to say about this movie. It is pretty generic in regards to like, it gets lost in the shovel pretty easily, in my opinion. This movie, and
Yeah,
on top of that, I think a lot of other people just so agreed as well because it only just made double its money back effectively.
yeah,
Like
pretty much. I mean, very similar to Epic, in which it just doubled its budget and it just came and went, and nobody really remembers it anymore.
yeah. So I think we got to give this thing a score. So
All right, let's
um,
see.
it's pretty middle of the road, to be honest with you. I mean, there's story issues, and also John Cena. You can tell that he's trying, but unfortunately, he's just John Cena. And Kate McKinnon is not funny in this movie. And how on earth can you not make Kate McKinnon not funny in something? Like, and just the jokes don't land, and it's not a great way for Blue Sky to continue, really. So, unfortunately, it's a 4.
I would say it's a 5 because it's just so middle of the road. It's not the worst movie I've seen. I still argue that Ice Age Collision Course and Epic are worse than this. But I would say that it's not as good as, say, the first Ice Age movie or the Peanuts movie. So it definitely hits that middle road. Too many characters, weak story, didn't take advantage of its main message, and also the things that you would have expected it to be like really harsh just kind of like get softened, especially in the scene in which when one of the bulls is taken over to the slaughterhouse and you're thinking, oh wow, he's dead, and then you have a second bull that's being taken over to the slaughterhouse, and then Ferdinand saying, I gotta go rescue him. And okay, I was thinking there's no way he's got to be dead by now because he was taken around in the middle of the night, and maybe he was going to be killed off immediately after he arrived. And then when he saw him alive, it's like, okay, maybe they'll kill him in the morning. That's fine. But then when you see that the first bull that was taken earlier in the movie is still alive, I'm like, how? How is he still alive? He should have been dead by now. Yeah, I'm sorry. That doesn't work that way. I mean, you just can't have a really serious moment like this where it's trying to relay a message on, fight for survival. It's a dog eat dog world, and then just like not deliver the final message. I mean, they didn't do this with Charlotte's Web. They didn't do this with Chicken Run. So why are you doing it here? And also, like I said, that, I don't know, just there's too many characters added into this. Like, those hedgehog characters are pretty useless. The horses were very useless. Like, just consolidate. Less is more, people. 5 out of 10. Just,
Yeah.
yeah,
So 4.5 out of 10 effectively for us. So.
sure.
All right, everybody. Well, we are sadly going to be going into our last movie, which will be Spies in Disguise. And who knows? Maybe as a bonus, maybe at the very end of it, maybe we might look at like the book movie.
And also, don't forget that there is the Scrat Tales miniseries. So we'll be looking into that. It'll be very similar to our Pix Mix episode where we talked about Doug Days. So there's that too.
Cool. All right then. So until then, we go into our last official episode with Spies in Disguise next time. And so take care and bye for now.
See you later.